It's time for Reason.
School funding did not go down. A flat-out, absolute lie. Across the board, in every district as an average, the state funding went up 1% to 2% every single year Governor Brownback has been in office, even after the tax cuts, even after the budgetary issues. The budget continued to climb every single year, and education spending grew by 2% every single year Brownback has been in office.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-American Network. It's the day that we look forward to every single week, or lack thereof. It's a Monday morning. Let's go ahead and get it started, right? The proper way, the real way. Let's go ahead and get excited. Let's get pumped up for the week. Let's get pumped up for the day. I know it's a hard one to do so, but let's go ahead and start off a Monday morning. What do you say?
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
There it is, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you are more than welcome to do so. Good Monday morning to you. It is November 6th. We are officially into the month of November, a good decent amount. We are officially ready to kick off a whole new holiday with come Thanksgiving in just a few days. Can you believe it? Just a couple of weeks away, and I know you're getting ready for the family time. You're getting ready to enjoy. You're getting ready to figure out what you're going to cook and what you're going to do. We may have some treats and some ideas for you coming up in the next few shows. But welcome into it here. It's a Monday morning, and it's good to be with you. We've had another rough weekend. We've had some more incidents happen, as you know, with what they were talking about all this morning. You've heard the news with the shooting that happened down in Texas. We'll talk about that in just a second, because I was wondering, and I'm going to link the two. I don't think anybody else is going to do this. Mark my words, as you hear everybody talk about this throughout the day today, you're not going to hear it anywhere else like this. It's just not going to happen. First off, as you know, there was a threat on Tuesday, potentially, on November 4th, that there was going to be an uprising by the cute members of ANTIFA, and how they were going to rise up. They were going to go after law enforcement. They were going to go after Trump supporters. They were going to go after Republicans. They were going to go after anybody that they deemed as a threat, a.k.a. that they saw as a fascist, which I thought was very cute. Nothing happened on Saturday. Surprise, surprise, right? On the 8th, which is the one-year anniversary of the election for Donald Trump and his victory, there's going to be a nationwide scream to where if you hear a bunch of people outside screaming in the middle of the day, it'll be because of the election results from a year ago, and they're just, throwing their temper tantrum. The kids are continuously throwing their temper tantrum and causing havoc. So that's going to happen in a few days from now. You can look forward to that. I'm looking forward to go outside and just recording it, because then we can play it of the children that are continuously throwing their temper tantrum. It'll be great. But I was wondering, and I was waiting to hear some big news. And we did hear news of Senator Rand Paul down in Kentucky getting assaulted in his home, or in front of his home. And that could have been a member of Antifa. I don't have a whole lot of details on that one. Luckily, he is okay. But that was really the only incident that we heard from over the weekend that was, I think, linked to Antifa until the shooting in Texas. And it's so unfortunate that this happened. Again, our thoughts and prayers go out to them. Not just a shooting, but a shooting in a church, in a Baptist church, to where 26 individuals have died. 24 individuals have been critically wounded. And now what do you hear? The sick, and yes, I mean sick, absolutely pathetic left-wing progressives calling for gun control again, because that's the only thing they can do. Oh, our thoughts and prayers go out, and oh, by the way, we need to actually do more than think and prayer, so therefore we need to ban guns, and we need to get rid of these because it's absurd that they have these guns, yada, yada, yada. Before we get into that argument, which, as you know, is the dumbest thing that you could possibly do, let's read over some of the information in case you have not heard the details of this shooting yet. 26 people shot dead in the gunman, at least 24 people being treated. His name was Devin Patrick Kelly, 26 years old, a married father, wore all black, a bunch of tactical gear, and carrying a rifle, walked into the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs, Texas, which, by the way, is near San Antonio, not within our listening range, but still our thoughts and prayers go out to them from where we're at. The gunman then fled, but then pursued the neighbor by Stephen Wilford, 55 years old. Here's the kicker. Here's what you're not going to hear in the media. First off, I link, very much so, I link this shooting in Texas to a member of Antifa. Now, whether he was an actual member or not, I don't think he was, but this is the same mentality as Antifa. It's really one and the same. As more information is beginning to come out, and this is according to the Daily Mail, creepy, crazy, and weird is how he was described. Former classmates say Texas gunman was an quote-unquote outcast who was preaching atheism and despised religion to a T. Now, name me one member of Antifa, one member of, not the Democrat Party or the progressives, but the extreme, violent, radical side of the left-wing movement. Describe one of them that has any bit of religious meaning to them, that has any bit of religious background to them, that preaches some type of religion. I've done it before, and it's a very bold thing to claim, but yet I still like to claim it. The radical, militant, progressive movement, not the regular Democratic Party, not the regular left-wing liberals, but the radical, militant groups like Antifa, like the Black Panthers, like the KKK, and many of these that like to take up arms and like to be very militant and like to use their agenda through force, who like to bully individuals, who like to blackmail individuals, who like to call them names without actually having a dialogue, that like to blackmail and like to push their agenda onto others based on fear, based on anger, based on hatred, based on violence. It is the exact same the exact same approach as what radical Islamists do, to where it's been taken away from the actual personal meaning of, hey, I have my own beliefs, but anybody else can have their own beliefs, but I have my own beliefs, and I'm just going to work to make myself a better person based on the beliefs that I have, as opposed to that to, now I'm going to start imposing on everybody else because I don't like what anybody else has to believe in. It's really one and the same. Whether you're talking about Antifa, that hates fascists by being a fascist and wanting to impose their will on somebody else, or whether it's the radical Islamists who are fascists in themselves as well, the Islamo-fascists is what they like to call them, and like to terrorize individuals, bully them, and beat them up or blow them up because you don't have the same agenda. It doesn't matter what side of the coin that you're talking about. It's the exact same coin. It's the exact same mentality, and this is what this individual did. This individual is known for preaching atheism, was a little bit creepy, crazy, and weird, got dishonorably charged from the Air Force because he had abused his wife and child, for assaulting his wife and child, got dishonorably discharged from the Air Force, has a grudge on his shoulder, preached atheism, despised individuals that believed in religion, and wanted to take that a step further. Now, you can talk about gun control all that you want to, but the matter of fact is the only reason he stopped, the only reason he's dead, the only reason that he fled the scene was because a neighbor went to his home, pulled out a firearm, and shot the individual, even though he was wearing the tactical gear, found an opening in the tactical gear, shot him, made the guy flee because he was wounded, and 8 miles later ended up crashing his car because he was dead, because he had been shot by a neighbor who ended up stopping the mass shooting with a gun. So let's talk about gun control for a second. If that neighbor did not have a gun or did not have a firearm, how long would this rampage would have gone on for? How long would have this individual tried to have committed this incident? How long could he have continued to shoot? How many more people would be dead until law enforcement actually arrived? But you're not going to hear that in the media. You're not going to hear the fact that, in my opinion, this was an Antifa terrorist attack. Yes, a terrorist attack from Antifa. The ones who do not like what agenda you have, what opinions you have, what religious beliefs you have, and therefore we're going to stop you because we are crazy, we are weird, we are angry, we hate the world, we assault our wife and child. We're not going to believe in anything else but our own personal beliefs because we're a child. We may be a little messed up in the brain, and we're going to go out and assault somebody else and shoot them. I lump this in. I really do. I lump this in as a terrorist attack from Antifa. So Antifa did strike this weekend. They said they were going to over the weekend. They did. And they created the largest mass shooting in Texas. And our thoughts and prayers go out to them, including, by the way, a family of 5 with a mother that was 5 months pregnant, including, by the way, a 2-year-old that ended up dying, including, by the way, the 13-year-old daughter of the pastor of the church. This is a terrible, horrible ordeal. This is, along with being the largest mass shooting in the state of Texas, this should wake up individuals who have allowed the protest to happen because of Antifa, who have allowed the protest to happen because of hatred, because of bigotry. This should be a wake-up call for the left-wing progressives, and I hope to God that the left-wing progressives realize that their message of trying to end religion in the country because we don't like having religion, because religion makes you hold yourself to a higher standard and you don't want to do so. And I'm not talking about the general Democratic Party here in any way, shape, or form. I'm talking about the extremists. I'm talking about the fringe. I'm talking about the fanatics. I'm talking about the militants. I'm talking about the radicals that have fought religion in the school to actually, students be allowed to say a prayer, that have fought these students to actually be allowed to stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance and unite under the country. I'm talking about the ones who despise the fact that we have religious foundings in this country and despise the fact that 90% of the American population still has Christian beliefs. And they hate that. And their atheism and lack thereof of religion has turned into a political movement to want to force others to believe the same way they do because they despise the opposition so much. The hatred comes from that side, not from this side. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
Hey, welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-America Network. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It's a Monday morning. Let's kick it off the proper way, shall we? Starting off a brand new, beautiful week and one day closer to Thanksgiving. It's very difficult to be in the festive holiday spirits when we see all this happening. The question is, how do we stop it? We've seen it more frequently over the last few years. Really over the last, 8 to 9 years. 8 to 10 years. It's been progressively getting worse. We've seen more of this happening over and over again, and the only stupid response that we can have is, hey, let's talk about gun control. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand why that's the discussion, why that's the talking point, why that is the direction we have to go, rather than what we look at as maybe the mental capacity of individuals or the mental state of some individuals, whether it's the opioids that are in them, whether it's the fringe ideas that they try to promote, and they get so angry because they realize that people don't necessarily agree with their stance, so therefore they want to try to force it onto others, or they snap. Whether we start realizing that bipartisanship and division is happening to a great extent to where we have a huge divide in the nation, whether it's understanding that we have individuals that need some help that may not be getting it. Why is it always going back to the gun control? I have the story here. From The Hill that came out just a few hours ago. Democrats are renewing their calls for gun reform after reports of a mass shooting at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas on Sunday. Multiple people are dead after gunfire erupted at the church, which is not far outside of San Antonio. Senator Bob Casey Jr. from Pennsylvania and Dick Durbin from Illinois and Kamala Harris from California were among the Democrats who urged Congress to act in response to the latest deadly shooting. Quote, I'm thinking of and praying for all those impacted by the shooting in Texas. In addition to offering my prayers and thoughts, I also believe Congress must take action on gun violence. Let's compare the two latest happenings over the last few weeks, shall we? We had an individual in New York City of Muslim descent who wanted to be an extremist, who had been radicalized, who came here on a visa. on a lottery visa, quote unquote, and he came to the nation wanting to cause harm, and he did so. He was an Uber driver, ended up getting into a truck, going into a bike lane, running over individuals, running into the back of a school bus, and then getting out with a paintball gun and a pellet gun, not being recognized by the way of the general public because they have no idea what those guns actually look like. Running down the middle of an intersection, running down the middle of a street as people are driving on by, just doing their business, watching this crazy fanatic causing havoc. And the only way he gets stopped is by a police officer who ends up finding him finally, shooting him in the gut and stopping him, putting him dead in his tracks. Not dead because he is still alive, but ended up being able to put him down. The individual looking to be harmed, looking to be dead because of the terrorist attack that he committed while shouting Allahu Akbar the entire time. And the pellet gun and a paintball gun not causing any damage, but the purpose of them was solely just to have a firearm so that way he would be killed. But nobody, not a single citizen, being able to actually stop the incident from happening. Why? Because they don't know what a gun looks like. They've never shot a gun because New York City has some of the toughest gun laws in the entire country. Now, granted, he did not use a firearm. So there's one scenario where the citizens are absolutely 100% helpless. On the other side, we have a shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas. We have an individual who's a fanatic who got dishonorably discharged from the Air Force, who had assaulted his wife and child because he has anger issues, whether it's PTSD, whether it's because he's just a fanatic, whether it's because he's weird, doesn't matter. An atheist who despises individuals with religious belief. And opposed to just saying, hey, I have my atheist beliefs, I don't believe in God, but you're allowed to believe in whatever you want to. No, he needs to take it to the next level. I hate you for you having your religious beliefs. I hate you for believing in what you believe in, and therefore I'm going to react in it. Shows up in tactical gears and an assault rifle, quote unquote, because the rifles can apparently assault people all by themselves. Goes in, kills 26 individuals, injures 24, including women and children. The only way this gets stopped is by a neighbor seeing what's happened, runs into his home, pulls out a firearm, and shoots the bad guy through the tactical gear, wounding him, making him stop his assault onto the church, makes him flee the scene and die 8 miles later in a car as he's trying to escape from law enforcement. Tell me the difference between these two scenarios. Oh yeah, that's right. The only reason it stopped was not on his terms, but on the terms of the neighbor that had a firearm. Now tell me why law enforcement was not there. Why? Because they cannot be proactive. They can only be reactive. Tell me why, or tell me the difference between these two scenarios. It was done on his terms in New York City, as opposed to being done on the neighbor's terms with a gun in Texas. And I told you just a week ago when we were discussing this incident in New York City, when if this would have happened in the Mid-America region, there would have been a neighbor, there would have been an individual around, somebody in the surroundings that would have had a firearm that could stop the bad guy. We just talked about this last week, did we not? That if it happened in this area, in Texas, in Oklahoma, in Kansas, in Nebraska, in Missouri, in California, or in Colorado, in New Mexico, in this Mid-America region, if someone would try this, there would be somebody with a firearm nearby that could stop it. And it happened. He still got 26 individuals, unfortunately, and it breaks our hearts. But there was a neighbor that could prevent it from being 30 or 50 or any more than that, however many people were in that church. He stopped it because of a gun. But let's talk about gun control and start banning guns, right? This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
'Cause the days for more the same. Will I see me falling? Get down and
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-America Network. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Good Monday morning to you. Let's start off a brand new, beautiful week. And I want to hear from you. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, shoot me a message on Facebook, by the way, on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, and on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. I'd love for you to check that out. Like it, share the Facebook Live. Let's spread the word. Let's create a conservative grassroots movement all across this Mid-America region. We need to bring back, not only do we talk politics here, which we like to do, but we also talk about how to make the community a better place. We talk about how to make the family a better place, revitalizing the family traditions that would, by the way, prevent a lot of these incidents and anger and hatred from actually happening. Why? Because we realize the necessity of having a happy family at home, and therefore you have the happy family in the community, and therefore you don't have incidents like we've been seeing. So let's advance traditionalism. I know some people cast that down, and if I was on Twitter right now, I'd be getting many hate messages about family traditionalism, because how dare that you hold the family structure together, because that has destroyed our nation, especially being a white individual with a traditional family value and having, I don't know, like a mom and a dad together with kids. First off, how dare you not allow other members being joined in? It just goes down this whole dirty road. So nonetheless, advancing family traditional values. 316-721-8255. By the way, an update on the assault from Senator Rand Paul as well. According to the Daily News, it's U.S. Senator Rand Paul has 5 ribs fractured and lung contusions as a result of an apparent assault on Friday by a neighbor at Paul's home in Bowling Green, Kentucky, according to the spokesman for the Kentucky junior senator on Sunday. 5 ribs and lung contusions by a neighbor. Now, this was not a member of Antifa, although he looks like a very angry individual who just despised Senator Rand Paul. And you would think, though, again, if you don't like the person, then either keep to yourself or move away. But to go out and assault them, again, this is the lack of intelligence from the left-wing progressives that just say, I despise you and hate everything about you, therefore I'm going to come out and assault you. This is pathetic. Grow up. This neighbor, by the way, an anesthesiologist, Reen Bochers, 59 years old, a Bowling Green doctor, was arrested Friday with the charge of 4th-degree assault after the incident at Paul's home in the gated River Green community just east of Bowling Green. Just lived down the road. Was released Saturday night from the Warren County Regional Jail on a $7,500 bond. The arrest warrant in the case indicates that Paul told police the neighbor came onto his property and tackled him from behind, forcing him to the ground and causing pain. According to the warrant for the arrest, Paul had injuries to his face and had trouble breathing due to a rib injury. Senator Paul and Kelly appreciated everyone's thoughts. By the way, Senator Paul's wife, thoughts and well wishes, and be back fighting for liberty in the Senate very soon. An anesthesiologist, for whatever, they don't have a motive yet. You're not going to get a motive from the media, because the media doesn't want you to know that the individual was just a member of the Democrats and progressives who despise Senator Rand Paul, despise his conservative ideas, despise him making Bernie Sanders look like an imbecile and a child, and wanted to assault him. That's unless there's a personal grudge. There may be, I don't know, the HOA, maybe the homeowners association didn't like Senator Rand Paul's yard sign in the front yard or something, and this individual snapped her for whatever reason. I'm guessing, however, that Senator Rand Paul doesn't have a whole lot of things in his yard that would make the HOA or community mad, and unless there's a personal grudge between the two, I'm assuming the anesthesiologist, being a doctor, being maybe a member of the elitists, and I'm not saying all doctors are elitists, but I'm saying maybe he's one of those who just despise Senator Rand Paul for the things that he's doing, from making Donald Trump sign that executive order to begin repealing Obamacare. Maybe it has something to do with that. So, nonetheless, he is arrested. He's on bail right now, and assaulted Senator Rand Paul in front of his home, creating 5 cracked ribs, messed up his face a little bit, and some contusions on his lung. How sad. How pathetic. Our thoughts and prayers, again, go out to Senator Rand Paul as well, because nobody needs to go through that stuff. Again, we talked about it before, and I've mentioned this before, but progressives use the emotions to advocate for their arguments. It's all emotional. It's all about the emotion. And that's what it's all about. They use the emotion of, I can't believe that you believe this, because it's heartless, because you're not taking care of individuals, and because I need to advocate for what I feel and what I believe in, and therefore it's all emotional to me. As we as conservatives, we don't do that. We actually advocate for logic and common sense and reason, to where we know that hands-off is actually more caring than the hands-on. The tough love is more important and actually more beneficial than the hovering helicopter parent, so to speak. We don't like to hover. We don't like to be that helicopter parent in the means of being in society. We don't like to have that dependent state. We don't like to be the microaggressors. or to have the micro, what do you call it? The micro control, the boss that overbears you. We don't do that. We're the hands off. We're the Adam Smith invisible hand. We like to allow the market to actually, work by itself. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean that we're not caring. That actually means that we're more caring because we allow things to correct themselves properly. That's what we're about. And therefore, we don't get emotional because everything's about numbers, everything's about statistics, and everything's about logic. So when we debate, it's not personal. Notice the personal attacks from the progressives. When they don't like somebody, then we're a hateful, bigoted, white supremacist, neo-Nazi, fascist, racist, yada, 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 and the names go on and continue. I was actually in a debate again over the weekend on Facebook with an individual about the taxes here in the state of Kansas. And as soon as I commented, because it was about the Democrats trying to stop the tax reform that's happening at the federal level and using the Kansas experiment, which we talked about on Friday. And I made the case and you could just see the comments. You could see the comments from individuals. Oh, Brownback's an idiot. Oh, I hate this guy. Oh, these people are idiots. Oh, these people are dumb. Yada, yada. Oh, I can't believe he's doing this. Oh, I can't believe Republicans. And just name calling after name calling after name calling. So I just commented and said, wow, there's a lot of hate on this page. And then, of course, they commented back, you're an idiot, and I can't believe that you'd make that comment, and we're just angry because of this, and you're welcome. We stopped all the evil tax cuts, and we stopped this, and we stopped that, and you should be grateful to us, and I can't believe that you'd say something like that because you're the hateful one, because you're a Republican. And I tried to have a dialogue, and I rebutted everything that they laid out, and they wouldn't have it. Your Tea Party argument, according to them, is old. Your libertarianism is out of date. You need to just get with the times. You need to stop being a drone. You need to stop being a hateful Tea Party hater. You need to stop being a blah, 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 blah. It was all personal. When you talk about Islamofascism, to them, it's all personal. If you don't agree with the religion that they want you to believe in, that they believe in, then you are in the wrong. And it is their duty, they believe, with their political activism, to change that or to kill you. When you are a member of Antifa, if you do not join as a member of Antifa, if you do not apologize for your white supremacy and your white privilege, if you do not accept, and not only accept it, but join the groups of the LGBTQ whatever community, if you are not part of the Black Lives Matter movement, then you therefore by default are a fascist. You are by default a terrorist. You are by default a neo-Nazi, white supremacist, bigoted individual, and therefore we must harm you. It's all emotional to them. It's all very black and white to them. If you are not with us, then you're against us. And therefore, if you're against us, you are an enemy to the state, and you are an enemy to our cause, and therefore we must go out and harm you. This is exactly what happened with Senator Rand Paul over the weekend on Friday evening with an individual, unless it was a personal grudge being neighbors, I don't know. But just by the political sense, if you can actually bring up common sense and logic into the discussion, if you are not part of the Bernie Sanders socialized medicine movement, the universal health care, the socialized government, the taking care of individuals, this guy was an anesthesiologist. He's a doctor. If you do not agree with that big idealism, then therefore you do not care about poor people. You do not care about sick people. You do not care about those that are less off than you. You do not care of anybody else other than the rich and elite that can afford to pay for their care out of pocket without any insurance whatsoever because you are part of that 1% elitist group. And they categorize you. If you're not with us, then you're against us. Senator Rand Paul, you are against us. I need to harm you because I don't like you and you have a voice and I don't, and therefore I'm going to come after you. In this case in Texas, as a shooter, a weird... What was the description here? A creepy, crazy, weird individual, as he was described. An outcast who openly preached atheism, who was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force, who assaulted his wife and child, who had some mental instabilities for a long time, it sounds like. I am an atheist. I do not agree with your religion. And not only do I disagree with it, but if you are religious, then therefore you are the problem with society. You are the ones that are causing havoc. It's all emotional, and if you're not with me, you're against me. And therefore I will harm you. This is the division that we've seen in this country. I have not yet once had an extreme ideologue from the other side of the aisle. No, I've had Democrats call in and argue with me, and I love it. But the extreme militant group come on and actually have a dialogue on any shows, anywhere, because you're just the problem. They are so divisive. They are so marginalized. They are so much on the fringe. And the really, really, really sad part about this, and they won't admit it, but the pathetic part about this is the media holds them up as the courageous protesters. They hold them up as the mainstream media. What they're trying to advocate for, they promote these individuals to do these types of harms, say that it wasn't their fault, say that it was actually the system, or that the conservatives and Republicans actually deserved this. Do you remember the hateful messages that came out after the shooting in Las Vegas? You know what? Those are just Republicans that listen to country music anyways. They deserved it. Remember the shooting in Virginia at the baseball field? The Republicans? You know what? They were just Republicans on the field. They probably deserved it. You know what? We don't have a whole lot of sympathy for those guys. They're Republicans. They're going against the agenda of Democrats and liberalism. They deserved it. Incident after incident after incident after incident of hate, of anger, and of violence coming from the extremists on the other side of the aisle, not from conservatives.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-American Network. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. It's a Monday morning, and I don't want to feel like the negative Nancy this morning. It's really difficult to, during the times of terrible events like this, like shootings. And I want to take it the next step further. How do we stop it? How do we prevent it? Because you're not going to get through the heads of the extremists. Again, now this is not a generalization of the entire left side of the aisle at all. They have, unfortunately, however, the media, the mainstream media, the progressive media, have advocated for and urged Antifa to do what they like to do, have urged Black Lives Matter to do what they like to do, have urged the extremists to do what they like to do. Because they agree with the agenda. They truly, honestly do believe that Donald Trump is a fascist. They truly, honestly do believe that Republicans and conservatives who want to lower tax rates, who want to consolidate tax rates, to a degree at least, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, are the problem. Because they truly, honestly do believe that Bernie Sanders, the socialist mentality, needs to have 20 different tax brackets. And that we need to get rid of religion because we somehow have a violation of a separation of church and state, which, by the way, does not exist in our Constitution in any way, shape, or form. We have a right to practice religion. And the individual that did the shooting yesterday in Texas apparently did not believe that we have that legitimate right to practice religion however we deem fit. And therefore, he needed to become violent about that. But let's talk about gun control, right? Even though it was the neighbor with a gun that stopped the gunman and prevented him from shooting any more individuals. It was that guy that actually stopped it, but we should talk about gun control so that way he, the legit gun owner, is not allowed to have a gun. Now, supposedly this individual bought the assault rifles, bought the gun legally and legitimately. However, he was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force. I'm pretty sure that he's not allowed to have access to military-style weapons when you're dishonorably discharged. I may be wrong on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Now, how do we stop it? Here's exactly how you stop it. You focus on your local community. You focus on family traditions. I know that's something that a lot of people don't like to hear about because, family traditions. Traditional family values. We can't be having something like that. That's a travesty. And the way you do it is by making your community better, by focusing on your local community. I know tomorrow we have a lot of special elections all across the area, all throughout the state and outside of the state, all over the place, for local city council, for local school board. That is where you make your difference. You want to see stuff like this stop? The terrorist attacks, the mass shootings, the radical, crazy, weird, creepy individuals that just, feel like they're outside of society. You make the community warm. You make the community welcoming to everyone. So therefore, people don't get that sense of, I need to go out and do something rash and stupid. It really does have more impact than we realize. It's not just talking about the school board and talking about the children. As important as that is, which is one of the most important things you can do in your community, is to make sure that your children are getting the proper education. It's not just about the city council and investing to grow the city, which is important, extremely important in your local community. No matter what city that is, no matter what town that is, no matter what suburban area that is, it's extremely important. But also when things are going well and the economy's growing and jobs are available and opportunity is available and people are happy and people are working and people have money in their pocket and people are paying off debts and people have low taxes, then things are good. And there's no need for people to say, I'm desperate, therefore I'm going to go and rob and loot and steal. People don't need to feel like I'm desperate because we have financial struggles and I broke up and we had a divorce and now we're going through this litigation and we're trying to fight for the children and trying to fight for the house and there's nothing else to live for and I'm upset, so therefore I'm going to go and do rash and something stupid. You're still going to get the fanatics that say, I hate religion, so therefore I'm going to harm anybody that's religious. But when you encourage individuals to live the way that they want to live happily, then you see those rates go down. When you encourage individuals to actually have firearms, then you see those rates go down. When you see people that actually have guns around the community, then you see less individuals getting harmed. And again, I'll use the example. Someone in New York City running around in the middle of an intersection with two firearms. They may not be legit firearms, but they're firearms nonetheless. A pellet gun and a paintball gun. People don't know that there. They don't have guns. They've never shot a gun. So they let them run rampant. No one can stop it. As opposed to Texas, yeah, people got harmed, but guess what? The only way it stopped was when a neighbor came out and said, you know what? Hey, I'm going to go get my gun out of my house and shoot you to stop you. But let's stop guns, right? Let's create gun control. Absolutely the stupidest argument you've ever heard in your life. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
School funding did not go down. A flat-out, absolute lie. Across the board, in every district as an average, the state funding went up 1% to 2% every single year Governor Brownback has been in office, even after the tax cuts, even after the budgetary issues. The budget continued to climb every single year, and education spending grew by 2% every single year Brownback has been in office.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It's a brand new, beautiful Monday. And we appreciate you hanging out with us here. 721-8255-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, let's get it started. It's a Monday morning. We got to get pumped up. We got to set the tone for the whole week, set the tone for the day. I know it's a hard one after what happened over the weekend, but still, let's go in with a positive light, shall we?
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
There it is, 721-8255-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, whatever you want to talk about, we'd love to hear from you today. Shoot me a message on Facebook, on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, and on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. You can leave a comment. You can like it. I do appreciate it when you do like the Facebook Live feed, when you share it on your own personal page. Let's expand. Let's grow. We talk about advancing conservatism to the grassroots movements. We talk about trying to focus on family, traditional family values. We try and, you remember the show Home Improvement? Greatest show in the world, I think. I love that show, which is why I was really sad when Last Man Standing went down with Tim Allen. But Home Improvement, it was the show that as a kid I watched every single day. I tried to. That was the show I looked forward to all the time. And remember on Tool Time, he said it wasn't always just about home improvement, but it was about male improvement and how you need to work on yourself along with working on the issues at hand. That's what we do on this show. It's not just conservative talk radio, but it's traditional talk radio. It is talking about traditional values. It's about remembering history, remembering what we used to go through, the values we used to set for ourselves, the standards we used to set for ourselves. I know that's really difficult sometimes. I know that's really, really hard, because there are some that say, don't impose your standards onto me, and how dare you do that? I should be able to live my life any way that I want to, because you really don't want to hold yourself accountable for anything that you do, and therefore it's okay to commit crime. It's okay to just go out and harm others or call them names or whatever, because they have no standards for themselves. We, however, like to promote those certain standards. And welcome into it. 721-825-5721-TALK. We do have an election coming up tomorrow. It's special election time in the areas for city council, for school board. I did promise, and I will deliver at the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned in. At the bottom of this hour, we will play a montage, and I may play it in the 8 o'clock hour again, too. It's about 8 to 10 minutes long, I believe. But it is a montage of all the school board candidates that we've had on the program. It's really important. And it was really difficult, by the way. We did, 15, 20-minute interview with every candidate that we got on the show, and I compressed that down to a minute and a half of each individual on a little bit of their experience and what their platform is running for school board. So stay tuned in. Get your pencil and paper out. We'll play that at 7:30 after the bottom of the hour break, and therefore you can get an idea of what candidate you want to support and not support. Now, remember as well, there are 6 districts. However, there are only 4 districts that are up for election this time. And it's every few years when they rotate. So no matter what district you're in, if you live in USD 259 area at all, then you vote for all 4 districts that are up for election. Out of the 4 districts, we got a candidate at least from every district except for one district, district number 3, I believe it was 3 or 4, I forget, that did not come on the show. But we got, out of the 10 candidates, we got 6 of them on the show. I think that's a great success, a great tool for you as the voter, as the listener, to take away with that what you will, good, bad, or indifferent, who you want to support and who you don't want to support. So what I did was I compiled it all and did it district by district on who the opponents are, this person versus this person, and had the 2 audio clips together of those people talking. So therefore you have a great idea. So we'll play that at the bottom of the hour, and appreciate you hanging out and listening to that, getting ready for the election tomorrow. Coming up on the show, by the way, in the 8 o'clock hour, hour number 3, we're going to have Raheel Raza. She's with the Clarion Project, a Muslim reformer, talking about radical Islamic terrorism and how we reform the Muslim community. And it's a great discussion to have after what happened last week in New York City with the driver, and as we see terrorist attacks all across the world. A Muslim reformer I've advocated for and been a huge advocate to work with the Muslim community in order to spot radicalism, because the ones that are here, especially like the Islamic Society of Wichita, have been great reformers, in my opinion, have done great work trying to keep out radicalization. They don't want anything to do with it. When I talked to them, when I toured through their mosque, when I saw the service, when I saw and talk to what they do and what they advocate for, they don't want anything to do with that stuff. They shut that down pretty quickly. So we need to work with that community. We need to see the reform in the Muslim community. And this person, Raheel Raza, she's been advocating for that for a long time. So we'll talk to her coming up in the 8 o'clock hour to discuss post what's happened last week with the terrorist attack out in New York City. So looking forward to doing so as well. Until then, though, it's open lines to you. 721-825-5721-TALK. I am, as you can tell, I'm on the tail end of this cold, which compares very, very little to what happened over the weekend. If you do want to comment on that, between Senator Rand Paul getting attacked in front of his home and having 5 ribs broken or cracked, having lung contusions, having his face all mangled by a neighbor who felt like attacking him, tackling him outside of his yard, and beating him to a pulp. So our thoughts and prayers go out to him. If you want to comment on the shooting that happened down in Texas yesterday afternoon during a Sunday service, individual walked in with tactical gear, ended up shooting individuals, 26 killed, 24 injured, including, by the way, a 13-year-old, the daughter of the pastor that was killed, including a 2-year-old that was killed, including a mother that was 5 months pregnant that was severely injured and wounded, of an individual who was crazed, who is an atheist, who despised religion, who was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force, who had assaulted his wife and child, who was not supposed to have firearms in the first place because of being dishonorably discharged from the military. So therefore, how he got his firearm, I don't know, but let's talk about gun control, right? If you want to comment on that, as we talked about in the first hour, you're more than welcome to do so. 721-825-5721-TALK. I do need to clarify something, though, however. And this just kind of shifts gears just a little bit here. There was a report that came out, and on Twitter, the Kansas City Star reported this as well. And there was a big story talking about this. It's a little bit kind of sort of off topic from that, but it's still, I think, comparable to the elections. And this is how the media likes to portray certain things. It's very, very sad and very, very pathetic. I got an email, and this was a few weeks ago, and I've been hanging on to this for the right time. And I think during election time is the right time to bring this up, I think. In the state of Kansas, there are 9 cities that were ranked on LGBTQ equality. And the reason I bring this up is because the media loves to be able to harp on this, is that we're not very favorable to the LGBTQ community, which I think is absurd, but they like to rank us, and they like to, for whatever reason, classify, categorize. That's why the state of California had banned state-funded travel to the state of Kansas. So when it comes to sporting events, anybody that's traveling from the state of Kansas or from the state of California for universities to come here and travel, not allowed to be state-funded, not allowed to have the universities come here because we don't treat, apparently, LGBTQ communities properly. So here's the story. The Human Rights Campaign, the HRC Foundation, the Education Reform, is the nation's largest lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer civil rights organization. In partnership with the Equality Federation Institute, released its 6th annual Municipal Equality Index, assessing LGBTQ equality in 506 cities across the nation, including 9 in the state of Kansas. The 2017 Municipal Equality Index, the only nationwide rating system for the LGBTQ community inclusion in municipal law and policy, shows that cities across the country, including in Kansas, continue to take the lead in supporting the LGBTQ community and workers, even in the face of renewed attacks this year of the community by federal and state officials. So, all right, so here's how they do. So they rank it based on points out of 100 points. The average score for cities in Kansas apparently is 35, meaning roughly about a 35%, which follows below with the national average of 57. The question I have is, how do you rank this? And this goes into, by the way, the elections, because this is the talking points. If it's not tax reform, then it's schools. If it's not schools, then it's the LGBT community, because we need equality for everybody, right? Which I have no problem with equality. But let's talk about real, legit equality as opposed to the fabricated equality by protectionism through the law in order to attack somebody because we feel that supposedly we don't agree with their lifestyle, so therefore we're going to exclude them for some way, shape, or form, which is totally bogus. Here's how it ranks. Cities in Kansas, as an average, rank 35 out of 100. The national average is 57. Here's how it breaks down. Emporia ranked at a 23%. Hutchinson ranked at a 32%. Kansas City ranked at a 35%, the highest one in the state. Lawrence, 74% in Lawrence, which is the highest one. Manhattan, 57%, Olathe, a 7%, Overland Park, a 19%, Topeka at a 35%, and Wichita at a 31%. Now, you don't get a whole lot of more detail other than what I just read, especially through this email. You don't get a whole lot of information. My question is, how do you rank equality? Is it actual equality to where everybody's just doing their thing, and if you apply for a job, then it's not about your sexual orientation, but it's actually about your qualifications? Is it about you're allowed to do whatever you want to do without oppression, about people, attacking you in your yard and beating you to a pulp because they disagree with your beliefs? What is it? What is the standard for equality? Or is it the fact that the local municipalities have not passed specific legislation, specific policies, specific laws that say because you're a certain sexual orientation or a certain lifestyle, then you need to be a protected class, and we need to interject you into certain workforces, or else you wouldn't be selected, supposedly. We need to interject you into these places. We need to make sure everybody's aware of your lifestyle, and therefore you need to be in that protected class through legal legislation. And if that's how they rank it, then that's a totally bogus, absurd standard. Because not everybody, I don't think anybody needs to be in a quote-unquote protected class, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of whatever. Because again, doesn't that divide instead of actually stop the division? Doesn't that? So if, and I'm assuming that's how they're actually lumping this in, because the community of that, which again, I have no problems with, I don't care. Don't force it onto me or say, oh, look at how I am. You should tolerate that. I don't really care. Go about your business. Let me go about my business, and everything's fine and hunky-dory. But if you're trying to grade it based on protected classes on local municipalities, then yeah, you're going to have a low grade because that's how you view it, as opposed to you just having the grade of whatever because you're just a member of the community and you go about your business. There's a big difference there, and they don't give a whole lot of detail. So the question I have is, why do we have rankings here? Why do we have protected classes? Why are we attacking local municipalities that may not have the quote-unquote protected class and then ranking them very low for quote-unquote equality? Because that's not equality. But you know this is going to come up in the elections. You know this is going to come up in the local communities because, again, oh, you're ranked really low for the LGBTQ community. Either we need to focus on you, we need to attack you, or you need to change your stuff very, very quickly. And it's going to be politicized. And it's going to come up in the elections next year. It's going to come up in even potentially the elections here with the school board, with the city councils. Who know? Teachers that may be part of that community may feel like they're being attacked viciously day in and day out, and therefore they need that protected class. It's going to be politicized, and I guarantee you it's going to come up in the elections. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? 721-825-5721. Talk. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Eddie, how are you, sir?
I have two comments.
Go for it.
First of all, little clarification. That shooter down in Texas, he had a bad conduct discharge, not a dishonorable. Bad conduct.
That's good news. According to the Daily Mail, they had mentioned that he had been dishonorably discharged, so that may have been the pre-information coming out there as they're trying to gain information on this individual. So that's good to know.
Okay. A bad conduct means that you have committed a crime, like you committed a robbery or you beat the devil out of your wife and your child.
Exactly, and that's what he did. He assaulted his wife and child, so that's why he had received that.
You get a bad conduct. Actually, there's five discharges from honorable all the way down to early separation. Good. Anyway, concerning when I worked for a very, very large company, I hired a lot of people, okay? And when they came through the door, I did not have a clue whether they were gay or whatever.
Right.
And it didn't make any difference to me. But I did find out that a young individual that actually worked for me was gay, and riding with him sometimes, he actually talked about it, et cetera, like that, but he never let the customers know it or anything like that. And but who gives a rat's ass whether somebody's gay or why are we even bringing this? Andy, I don't want to know your personal sex life, okay?
Exactly.
And I don't want to know anyone else's personal sex life. I mean, their business is their business, and the deal of it is we need to go back about 50 years and say that part of your life should be quiet, no matter
it's private.
Who you are, what you are.
Exactly, it's private, and that's the point that we try to make here. When we have these rankings coming out for cities that have quote unquote equality laws, meaning that you're a protected class because people need to know about what your personal life is, what your sexual orientation is, what your gender that you view that you feel to be as, that people need to know about it, and that you need to be protected because of that. Because all of a sudden you're going to be turned away from a job not based on your qualifications, but because of that specifically, is completely and utterly false and absurd. And we're not talking about equality. We're talking about a protected class through the law. And if you don't have those on the books, and apparently you're a society and you're a municipality and you're a local neighborhood and community that doesn't care about that community because you haven't openly said, I want everybody to know about what my sexual orientation is, and I'm going to be protected because of that. So therefore we're going to pass laws protecting you for that. It's completely bogus. And to have these rankings, to me, is completely absurd.
And I will be perfectly honest with you. Now, I had strict standards about the way that the people that worked for me presented themselves to our customers, okay? Now, the deal of it is you don't talk about your personal life. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics. The only thing you do is try to be the best route salesperson you could possibly be. Now, if you went out there and started flaunting your homosexuality, hey, to be quite honest with you, that is a huge red flag, because that's really there's a good possibility you lose your job, seriously.
Oh,
you
yeah,
don't do that.
And it's not because of that's how you choose to live your life, but it's because that you force your personal views or your personal whatever onto other people, and you cause a scene about it. Again, there's a big difference between flaunting it. There's a story, and Eddie, I appreciate the call. There's a story that came out a couple of weeks ago about the some anti-abortion activists who had stopped their sign holding on the side of the street and went into a coffee shop, and the coffee shop owner was gay, and he did not like these individuals and kicked them out of the shop. And I mean, he's got the right to do that. The same as the other side of the aisle when we say that the gay individual wanted to go and get a cake from for the wedding, and the baker didn't like that, and therefore he didn't do it. Everybody's got their prerogative as the business owner in that sense, and I support the gay owner for not accepting service from them because he didn't want to. That's his prerogative. He's a business owner. He's got the right to do it. I don't really care. But he went the difference from and he was talking to these Christian anti-gay individuals and said, if I, end up having relations with my boyfriend right here on the table in front of you, would you accept that? Would you approve that? And there's a big difference between saying, hey, I don't care that you're gay, as opposed to I want to watch you do that act in front of me, because I wouldn't approve of that with anybody, straight or gay. Nobody cares. But they don't see a lot of these activists. Again, this isn't the whole community, but the radical activists don't see that line of standards of, I'm going to act this way in public just to flaunt my lifestyle and make everybody be aware of it. There's a big difference between that and saying, I'm just a member of the community and I have my own personal lifestyle with privacy in my own home. And there's a big difference there. 721-825-5721-TALK. Your thoughts and calls on this when we come back. 25 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into it. Went a little long in that first segment. That's all right. We appreciate the calls. We'll continue this when we come back. 721-825-5721-TALK. Also, we're starting today. You're not going to want to miss it. And if you're watching the Facebook Live feed, I know you're getting excited about it. But we are starting today. We have 10 of these, by the way. We're giving one away a day for the next 2 weeks here. We're starting our run with the Dave Ramsey book giveaway, the Total Money Makeover. Brought to you by You Build It of Wichita. Appreciate them taking up with us here. We got 10 copies. We're going to give one away each day. Stay tuned in. We'll give this one away before this hour is done and over. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
For your daily dose of reason.
Are you insane?
I don't know. Just ignore him.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Salted whiskey, drinking cocaine.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, starting off on Monday morning. We appreciate you hanging out with us here. 721-8255-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, lots to get to today. Too much fun. Expanding conservatism on a daily basis, the fastest growing radio show in Wichita and really the entire state of Kansas and beyond, especially now that we're on outside of the state, where we are in technically 5 states in the first hour. How cool is that? 721-8255-721-TALK. Let's go right to the phones here. Shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, this is Ray.
Hey, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Andy. Hey, I just think we need to get back to basics on this whole issue of GLBT stuff and I don't know, the shootings and you talk about going back to the family values and stuff, and the Declaration of Independence. It talks about in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for the people to take up their own cause and assume among the powers of earth, and it says the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitled them. And then, just real quickly, a couple of quotes. One from John Adams: "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people." And then the other one from George Washington: "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports." And there is no way that anyone could say that homosexuality of any form is a moral act.
Well, that's true, and that's a good point to there. I would say that you're going back to the natural laws, like you mentioned. The natural laws are that you have the right as an individual, regardless of your quote unquote class, of how you describe yourself, regardless of your sexual orientation, regardless of your gender, regardless of your race, regardless of any of that. Your natural law, the natural rights you have, which a lot of people don't like to talk about, natural rights provided by God, not provided by the government, which many people see as God to some degree, that the natural laws give you the right to life, liberty, and property. And when you have that, that means you have the right to go out and get the career. You have the right to go get a job. You have the right to provide for your family. You have the right to do what you need through those natural rights. It's not because of a protected class, because we need those special protected class laws through the government to protect you, so that way you can live and you can be known based on the identity that you want to give yourself by letting everybody in the community know about your lifestyle. That's not what we're talking about here. Just the basics, as you mentioned, going back to the basics, allowing people to have that right just based on their individualism. That's all we need to be worried about, and it's not protected or provided by the government.
Yeah, and how can we expect God to bless a nation who's had such a turn to drugs and to abortion and to all kind of immoral acts? Sure.
Well, that's a good point, Gary. I appreciate it, my friend. That's some good points. I mean, and on the religious aspect, that makes sense. I mean, most religious individuals will see that and be able to use that. Non-religious individuals, that argument goes out the window because they obviously don't see religion as that aspect. You can't set a standard or a moral to be imposed on everybody, and that's their argument. And so when it comes to actually a debate and a discussion on rights, I agree with you. But in that sense, they're not going to see that as an example, as a way that you can actually to advocate for, because, well, they don't believe in religion or believe in God or believe in those morals should be imposed onto themselves. So I look at it more in the constitutional aspect, which falls in line with the religious argument, because our Constitution, our rule of law, our way of life that we have here is predominantly based on Judeo-Christian values when they wrote the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and every other piece of law that we have here and everything that we hold up to as a nation and as a country. They coincide in one together. And I agree with you, but I like to take the constitutional argument more so just because that's more of a legit argument to them when we're debating and when we're dialoguing. And when we have that argument of private property, when we have the natural law not granted, because imagine this, if the government protects and grants certain rights, how easy is it for them to take it away? How easy is it for them to just say, you know what, we don't want to impose that anymore. We don't want to do that anymore. Once everybody's in a protected class by the government, when a certain administration comes in, when we start talking about National Socialism, once we start talking about democratic socialism, which I still boggles my mind on how we actually advocate for democratic socialism. Let's democratically elect a socialist so that way they can never lose their power again. That's a swell idea. Well done. If we advocate for that, then when are they going to say, you know what? Yeah, we're just not going to allow you to have those rights anymore. Take it away. The government never had the right to grant those in the first place, so therefore, how are they going to take them away? That's the big difference. And I'd like to remind individuals, if we want to go historically here, let's go all the way back to World War II with the National Socialists that were the fascists, that were Adolf Hitler, that were in power, that said, hey, you know what, let's create a protected class of individuals between Jews and then whites and the white supremacy. And then let's start executing Jews because they were a protected class to some degree, and the government says therefore they're not the right kind of people in our system that we want, so therefore let's start executing them, violating that natural law of life and liberty and property, taking all of that away because the government being the God that some people believe that it is, felt like it could take that away, and therefore they began executing individuals. The government has no right to do that. Therefore, the government has no right to create that protected class. Therefore, when they feel like they can take it away, have no right to take that away because it wasn't theirs in the first place. That's what we have to get away from. We have a nation now to where everybody, unless you're in a special protected class, which again creates the groupthink mentality as well. Let's all, in order for me to not say, hey, I'm not part of an individual, but I'm actually part of a group. I'm part of a class because that class is protected. Therefore, I need to be part of it. So no longer am I Andy Hoosier, just the individual. No longer am I just the father or the husband or the member of a family. No longer am I that. No, I have to be part of the white class. I have to be part of the male class. I have to be part of the white privileged individuals. I have to be part of that society to where I'm part of that group. And therefore, you can categorize me and you can link me into that. And therefore, depending on who's in control of the government at that time, either that's the protected class or that's the attacked class, and those rights can be taken away or granted. That's how we've created our society nowadays. If you're black, then you're not an individual. You're not just you. You have to be part of the class. You have to be part of that group. And therefore, you probably have been attacked in society every day, day in and day out, because we have institutionalized racism in our society. And therefore, you don't have the same opportunities as what I do. And therefore, you have worse off problems in your life than I do as an individual because I'm a different skin color than you. If you're part of the LGBTQ community, then you need to be not just you as an individual, you need to be part of that class and need to be part of that group. And then that group needs to look at your equality rights based on protected classes by legislation through the government. That's where we're at today. It's a pathetic way to live, is it? It's a pathetic way to live that we can't live as an individual anymore. It's got to be the groupthink. It's got to be the class warfare. It's got to be the groupthink mentality, and that is what's destroyed our nation. I think it's that time. We're going to start this today. By the way, we have a lot of giveaways that we're going to be giving away here soon over the next couple of weeks. You're not going to want to miss a single day because starting tomorrow, I'm sure you've heard the promos on the show and on the station running, but starting tomorrow, we have our KQAM KGSO turkey drop for Thanksgiving. We have 10 businesses, and each day we're going to give one turkey away. You have to guess, depending on the 3 businesses of that day, you have to guess which business the turkey's going to drop on. You'll win or lose, and if you win it, you get a turkey. Yes, you get a turkey for Thanksgiving. It's going to be that cool. We're looking forward to doing it. We have a bunch of them, and it's going to be going on for all. So starting tomorrow, stay tuned in. We'll give away the turkey starting tomorrow. But today and for the next 2 weeks, we have a copy of Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. If you listen to Dave Ramsey middays from 2 to 5 here on KQAM, if you want to get out of debt, this is the book. All the books that he talks about between EntreLeadership and trying to teach your kids and yada, yada, yada. This is the Bible of how to get out of debt. This is the first book that he recommends to everybody, and it's a fantastic book. So I think it's time for us to give away. And all you have to do is answer a simple question and have a little fun answering a question. So let's do caller number 1. 721-8255-721-TALK, and we're going to give away a copy of Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, brought to you by You Build It of Wichita. We appreciate those guys partnering up with us here. And the question of the day is, according to Dave Ramsey, how many credit cards should you have in your purse and or wallet? That's the question. How many credit cards? According to Dave Ramsey, how many credit cards should you have in your purse and or wallet as a family while you're getting out of debt? Caller number 1, 721-8255-721-TALK. Let's go right to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Rachel.
Rachel, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Hey, very good. The question is to get a copy of Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, brought to you by You Build It of Wichita. According to Dave Ramsey, how many credit cards should you have in your household while you're getting out of debt?
0.
0! That is the answer, Rachel. You just won yourself a copy of Total Money Makeover. Appreciate it. Hang tight here. We'll get your information off the air. Our first one. We're going to do this, by the way, every day for the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have 10 copies. Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, brought to you by You Build It of Wichita. Our winner right now, Rachel. 0 credit cards. 47 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2 here on the Big Talker KQAM. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Kansas's fastest growing radio show, Wichita's fastest growing radio show, and we love it. We appreciate it. Thanks again, and congrats to Rachel winning the book, Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, brought to you by You Build It of Wichita. We're going to do another one tomorrow. Stay tuned in. Also, starting tomorrow, we got our turkey drop, giving away a turkey. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be giving away 2 things a day for the next couple of weeks. Don't miss it at all. This portion of the Voice of Reason brought to you by the AARP, whether it's the Fraud Watch Network, the community gatherings, the retirement calculator, whatever you need, the AARP's got it for you. AARP.org/KS for the state of Kansas. Marin Turner back with us here on a Monday. Good morning, Marin. How are you today?
Good morning, Andy. How are you?
Hey, we're doing great. It's a beautiful day here. It's chilly, but I guess that's what you get for being in November. I still cannot believe it's November, and now we have less than 20 days away to Thanksgiving.
Well, time flies when you're having fun, and so yes, it is November.
That's very true. That's very true. Which I can't believe as well. Coming up this weekend on Saturday is Veterans Day, and the AARP does like to work a lot with veterans and ways that we can show our appreciation to what veterans have been through.
Absolutely. There are over 218,000 military veterans in the state of Kansas. And AARP is always looking for ways that we can honor these heroes. And so we are running a program called 25 Days of Honoring Heroes. So that's going on between November 1st and November 25th. And here's how it works. The contest encourages people to nominate veterans, the families of veterans, or volunteers who are dedicated to taking care of veterans. You can submit a video. It has to be a minute or less. Or you can submit a photo and a short essay statement. And the top 3 videos will win $1,000 each. The top photo essays will win $750 each. So we hope that people will join this contest. It's just one of the ways to honor our vets. You can log on to www.25daysofheroes.com to learn how AARP is helping with caregiving of vets. There's a job search that's specifically targeted to military veterans, and there's a veterans hotline that you can call if you have information at 855-800-9023. You can call that hotline if there's information you'd like to help support a veteran. So, again, we'd like to honor the veterans in our state, and we hope people will join the contest.
How fun. Now, have you done this before? What kind of videos do you usually get? Have you seen some creative ones in the past?
I've not seen the 25 Days of Honoring Heroes this way. So I've not seen the videos, but I am so anxious to see them. This is an opportunity to be very creative in saying thank you to heroes that you know of. There's no limit on how many times you submit a video or an essay. So I really hope people will join in. This is a great way to say thank you.
It really is. It's a great way to do that. And as you mentioned, the rewards there are kind of fun as well. But just to show the appreciation for the veterans in our area, you mentioned how many are in the state of Kansas. That's huge. We need to be able to honor them. This is a great way to do it, especially going into the holiday season. We hear about the daily suicide rate from veterans across the country, which is 22, and it's really sad to hear about that. You hear about the homeless veterans. We hear about the less fortunate, the ones that can't get jobs or that may have medical issues when they come home. Being able to take care of them, being able to recognize that is a great way for us to unite really as a community and as a state of Kansas.
Absolutely. Also, we know that 1 in 3 investment fraud victims in America are military veterans. Mm-hmm. And so we're working with the U.S. Postal Service to raise awareness of common scams. And we've launched what we're calling Operation Protect Veterans. And you can report any fraud, again, at 855-800-9023. Again, I hope people will join in and be creative in saying thank you to these heroes. You can log onto our website for more information, www.aarp.org. www.ccc.org/KS, or call us at 866-448-3619. We'd love to talk to you.
Very good. I love it. And that website again was 25 Days of Heroes, correct?
Yes, it's www.25daysofheroes.com.
I love it. Maren Turner with the AARP. Great stuff there. Getting ready for Veterans Day, for the holidays, taking care of our community. Maren, we love it. We appreciate it. Have a great week. We'll talk to you again next Monday.
Thanks, Andy.
Always a pleasure there. Brought to you by the AARP. Check them out online, aarp.org/KS. For the state of Kansas there, talking about the veterans. Coming up in hour number 3, we're going to be talking with Raheel Raza. She is a Muslim reformer with the Clarion Project. We've had the Clarion Project on before. They do a lot with international security. They do a lot with domestic terrorism and international terrorism. And Raheel Raza is a Muslim reformer talking about the radical reforms that have been happening within the Muslim community and how to continue that so that way we don't see the extremists. Also, we did not get a chance to do it this hour. We will do it next hour, I promise. It is the montage of the school board candidates that have come onto the Voice of Reason for you to understand where they stand on the issues. A lot to get to next hour. You're not going to want to miss it. This is the Voice of Reason. Hour number 3 coming up in a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
School funding did not go down. A flat-out, absolute lie. Across the board, in every district as an average, the state funding went up 1 to 2% every single year Governor Brownback has been in office, even after the tax cuts, even after the budgetary issues. The budget continued to climb every single year, and education spending grew by 2% every single year Brownback has been in office.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. I don't want to hear about snow. No, if you heard the weather, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. Until Christmas time, I am not ready for snow. I don't want it. Let's bring back the 60-degree weather. Pretty please. Pretty please. Welcome into it here. It's a Monday. Let's get this started, shall we? We got to get pumped up for the week. We got to get pumped up for the day. We got a carpe diem all over this place. We got to set the tone because that's just what we do as conservatives. Let's do it.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
There it is, 721-8255-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, I'd love to hear from you today. Shoot me a message. I want to hear from you what's on your mind on Facebook, on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. If you go to KQAM, you can like and follow it. Like the Facebook Live feed. Share the Facebook Live feed. We love it when you do. Let's spread the word. Let's create this grassroots movement the way we like to do in our own community. Let's get into it. I'm really excited about our next guest here, so let's go ahead and introduce her. By the way, this is a topic that is extremely important, that's extremely it's a big issue. We saw the issue that happened last week in New York City. You've been hearing about issues that happen all over the world all the time. It's a war that's been ongoing for a long time, externally and internally within that community. Here's some fun stats for you. 27% of Muslims, or close to 237 million, believe that non-believers should be executed. Now, again, I'm a huge advocate for, and as you've heard, I've talked about many a times, that the only way to fight extremism, to define what the enemy actually is, to define who that enemy actually is to work with individuals to partner up and embrace the community that knows how to spot it, recognize it, and can fight it from within. I've been a huge advocate for that. As you know, we've had Hussam Mahdi, head of the Islamic Society of Wichita, on the show a couple of times. It's been a while. We should probably get him back on. But the way that we fight extremism, the way that we fight radicalism, is in order to fight it from within, is in order to work with individuals who know how to spot it better than anybody else. 27% of Muslims feel that non-believers should be executed. 26% of young American Muslims believe suicide bombings against non-Muslims can be justified in some way, shape, or form. Now, again, 26, 27%, that's not the entire community. That's not the entire religion. However, that is enough to cause harm, and we need to find out how to fight that and how do we form from within. And our next guest does just that. I'm so excited to have her on. She's with the Clarion Project. Raheel Raza is on with us here. Raheel, thank you so much for joining the show. Good morning to you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Talk a little bit about, first, for those that may not be familiar with you, the fight that you've had, because this can be a very dangerous fight. It's a very important fight, but by announcing and fighting the way you do can be a very dangerous thing. How did you get to be where you're at right now?
Well, I think I was born a rebel, so I pushed back against the status quo. And then when I came to the West, I had the freedom to speak out and to pursue my activism. As you said very, very eloquently, this is a war of ideas. It's not a war of weapons. And it's an internal battle within the world of Islam, in a way for the soul of Islam. So the challenge for those of us who are involved in this activism and this battle for the soul of Islam is twofold. One, there is an internal battle within the Muslim world because, that's where the problems are taking place. And the second one is to deal with what we are hit with from the outside. So it is a double whammy for us. We don't sleep very well at night because this is a 24/7 challenge. And as in this past year itself, there have been so many terrorist attacks. Unfortunately, majority of them done by my co-religionists. So, there's no thanks for the work we do, but that's not why I do it. I do it because of the sake of my future generations, my children, my grandchildren, and for a better world. We have to have better communication with each other to understand how we can fight this together.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right. When we talk about fighting something ideologically, it's not just, for an example of like what happened with the Revolutionary War. Oh, there's the enemy. They're wearing bright red uniforms in the middle of a field and they're coming at me. That's who I need to go after here. It's a totally different world. In a world of idealism, individuals can blend in the middle of a community, in the middle of a crowd, and then cause harm. And we need to fight that. When we see a stat like 26% of American Muslims, young American Muslims, that feel that it's okay and can be justified to do harm against somebody else, that's something that, just people...
It should cause us concern.
Exactly. It's a major cause of concern. It's not just something, hey, here's something with the bright red beacon of who the enemy is. We need to find a way to change that thought process and that mentality. Yeah. The question is, how do we do that?
Well, you're quoting from a short documentary that has been made by the Clarion Project called By the Numbers. And this was based on a Pew poll, so it's very accurate, and it's about the mindset and the ideology. Now, the question you asked is how do you change the ideology, is you have to have an alternate narrative. For the past 40 years, the extremists, the jihadists, have been pumping their own ideas and their own ideology into the West, and in one report I read, it's based on about $4 to $6 billion, and no one questioned it because it was ideas. You're looking around for the enemy, which you're looking for a physical enemy, but this is a war of ideas. It took a long time for Western leadership to wake up to the fact that this has been going on for 40 years, coming from the sands of oil-rich kingdoms and, coming into our academic institutions, coming into our society. So we have to fight back with better ideas, with an alternate narrative. And I'm part of the Muslim reform movement. That is what we do. We are trying to provide an alternate narrative. We are trying to bring Muslims into the 21st century. We want to have everybody follow the Universal Charter of Human Rights. We want tolerance, patience, compassion, the freedom to follow your faith any way you can. I'm a practicing observant Muslim, and I have the freedom to follow my faith as long as I don't impose it on anyone else, as long as there is no violence involved, as long as there is no pressure. Mm-hmm. This is the beauty of living in a democracy, is that we have these freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, but we are not allowed to, and we should not impose any ideas. Now, what is happening in this ideology is that the jihadists have declared war on the West. That's not me saying it. They've said it.
Sure.
And they're going to use any ways, any means in which to weaken the West from inside. And it's a difficult thing to pin down, as you said. How do you pin down an ideology? But we know that is why it's important to work with Muslims. It's important to work with, progressive, liberal, free-thinking Muslims who are fighting this battle, so that we can point out where we know the weaknesses are. We need to go to the root of where radicalization is being taught. There is hate being taught. And you can only harm another person if you're taught to hate them. What action is being taken against ISIS fighters coming home to Western countries? So there are many questions that we can ask, and we won't be called racist and bigots if we do. The rest of you, unfortunately, will be branded. So it's very important to work in cohesion with Muslims who are doing this work.
Absolutely. When did this you mentioned you're part of the reformer movement. When did this actually grow to the point to where it has a voice? Because like you mentioned, it's a unique thing here in the United States with the right to freedom of religion for everybody to practice, as long as it's not imposed or pressured onto somebody else. The reform movement of the Muslims here in America is a great thing. And as you said, I love the embracement of that, to work with everybody in order to stop hatred and bigotry and racism and everything of that sort from both ends on wherever it may be coming from to end that. Is it gaining traction? Is it growing in the country?
It is. It started this December. It'll be 2 years since it was launched in Washington, D.C., and it is the American Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, who is head of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, who started it. But there are people from all over the globe, all over the Western world, who are involved. And as you said, the purpose of this is to bring about change. As you may know, the Christian Reform is going to celebrate 500 years this year. So the Muslim Reform has just started. People can go to the website, which is www.muslimreformmovement.org. And it is open to everyone. This is not just for Muslims. We are saying that we will be the frontline warriors in standing up against aggression and violence and 7th century ideas and, the concept of armed jihad. But we need your support because we can't do this alone. And it is gaining traction. We have seen the results of the change in the last 2 years. There are movements, grassroots movements, which unfortunately are not reported in mainstream media because they're just not important. But we are watching them, and especially our youth who are fed up and tired of this day-to-day, waking up in the morning with stories of terror attacks. They are pushing back. And they want change. So I'm very optimistic. I'm very positive that the change will come.
That's really good to hear. Do you think, we mentioned the high percentage-ish of the young American Muslims who try to justify some of these actions. Do you think that maybe the social media, maybe some of the blogs, the Twitter, the Facebook, the isolationist individualism that we have because of technology and social media that's allowed some of these ideas to grow on that side has created a little more of that environment to allow the ability for young generation Muslims to potentially go down that road?
Well, yes, of course. Yeah, young people all over the world are now hooked onto social media. Mm-hmm. So social media has a very important role to play in this. But it's not the only place where they are getting their ideas. So, some people say that the internet is the only cause. It's not the only cause. It exacerbates the situation. But this is happening, the conversations around the dining table at home, what parents are teaching their children. Are they teaching them hate and divisiveness, or are they teaching them that they need to be loyal to the land in which they live? Are they teaching them that they have to have respect for everyone, people who are of faith and those of no faith? So it is that education, and it is what is being taught to them in their places of worship. There are some pulpits that are not teaching warmth and compassion and tolerance. They are teaching divisiveness and hate. And we need to track this down, and we need to eliminate this from our society because there is no place for hate in our society. And this is where, the young people are easily influenced because you may know, religion has always been the opium of the masses. It's used to brainwash people. Now, in Europe, they're bringing about changes. Mm-hmm. In France, there is a recent move where they're going to actually check the sermons of the mosques. They have to be in the language of the country. This is in Germany as well. I was there visiting that the sermons have to be in the language of the country. And if there is any hate being taught, those mosques will be closed, which is unfortunate, but that is a reality that we have to deal with.
Sure. Cool. Last question before we let you go. We're talking with Raheel Raza with the Clarion Project, clarionproject.org. You can find her and find all the writings and everything that's going on there. But as you mentioned, a lot of the influence to some of these individuals who want to go down that road of radicalization, you mentioned the pledging to the country and just actually teaching love. I mean, right now we're seeing ANTIFA movements to where, if you're any part of a Republican or a Donald Trump supporter or anything of that sort, then you are the enemy, and we've divided ourselves in that sense. We've seen terrorist attacks all over the country, not just from Muslims, but we saw the shooting in Texas yesterday from an atheist who just didn't like religion altogether and seemed to be a little bit mentally unstable in that sense. Do you think that some of the movements right now of not showing appreciation to the country as a whole, I love my country and I love the ability, like we mentioned, for us to practice and believe the way we want to without the government coming down on us, that movement to attack the nation as a whole, has that helped, or do you think that's going to increase the number of people who despise the country enough to go down this road of radicalization?
Well, I think that's a very important factor in what you were saying. These anti-movements are also very violent. We've got the regressive left, we've got these Antifa type of movements. But I definitely believe, as an immigrant who came to the West to embrace the values of a liberal democracy, of freedom of speech, I have taught my children loyalty to the land in which we live. Somehow people laugh at this idea. But I think if we were teaching that, then you don't really harm a place that you call home. I think the sense of, loyalty and love for the country that you live in is something that is missing from the dialogue that we are hearing. And, people are divided. Violence seems to be the easiest solution to every problem. But we need to have better dialogue and discussion. There is a peaceful solution to all the problems of the world. If only we would learn to have an honest dialogue and talk to each other. But now you've got political correctness and the regressive left who do not allow this conversation. People are not allowed to ask hard questions. So, that builds up. It festers, and then it sort of breaks open in a very violent way. We should never stem free speech. We should never stifle people from asking questions. But of course, hatred, bigotry, racism is not acceptable under any circumstance. We can have respectable, reasonable conversations. We're adults, we're mature, and we should be able to have these conversations. I, open myself to the audiences and say, you can ask me whatever you want. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be off limits.
I love it.
And this is why we need to have better conversations.
That's what it's all about. I love it. Raheel Raza is the Clarion Project, clarionproject.org. You can find her. Raheel, thank you so much for joining the show. It's great information. We'd love to get you back on at a later time.
Okay, I'll be there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. 22 minutes past the hour. Let's go ahead and take a break. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, good morning to you. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, KQAM. Happy Monday morning. Starting off a whole new week. Thanks again to Raheel Raza joining the show from the Clarion Project. You can visit them, clarionproject.org. This portion of The Voice of Reason brought to you by Network of Consultants. Business owners, listen up. They're an infrastructure company. You got all your networks, your computers. You got all your programs running on your machines. You want to make sure everything's running smoothly. They can help you with that. They'll get you set up with your firewalls and sonic walls, database safety and security, network communications, VPN, backup solutions, even getting you set up on the cloud. You have all the programs, all the computers, all connected to one network. And sometimes when things go down, it costs more to actually fix it than it does to maintain it in the first place. They work with small to medium businesses, so they know the importance of you, the small business owner, needing things to stay up and running the way they need to. You need to maintain it. Call them now. Get a free network analysis. They'll come out, visit your business, help you any way that you can, review your system, even help guide you to manage your own network. So that way you don't have to have them monitoring all the time. You can if you'd like, though, as well. They do have month-to-month plans. You don't have to do any long-term agreements. All you got to do is make the phone call. Ask the questions. They'll get you set up. Call them, 316-201-4624. Again, 316-201-4624. Or visit network-consultants.com, network-consultants.com. Tell them I sent you here on The Voice of Reason, and you'll get that free network analysis. Appreciate them hanging out here and joining us on The Voice of Reason. Bottom of the hour news coming up when we come back. We're shifting gears back to the local election. It's tomorrow. Once we're done with that, we can focus on, the midterm elections next year, the gubernatorial race. We can focus on the legislative session. We got a lot to do. It's going to be a busy, busy season, but tomorrow is the election. It's time for us to take a look at that. When we come back, our montage of all the school board candidates for the city of Wichita School Board that joined us here on The Voice of Reason over the last couple of weeks. We'll look at their views, their platforms, and their campaign. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Are you a Hoosier-holic?
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
Call in now at 721-8255. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what it's all about, baby. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It's a Monday morning. Appreciate you hanging out with us. A lot of people checking out the Facebook Live today. Welcome aboard as well. Appreciate you doing that, too. The fastest growing radio show in Wichita, the entire state of Kansas, and beyond. Because we just focus on traditionalism, patriotism, grassroots movements, and, of course, conservatism. Why the heck not, right? 721-8255, 721-TALK if you want to join in as we wrap up the show today. All right, I want to get to it here. We talked with 6 out of the 10 candidates for the Wichita School Board. As we go into the special election tomorrow, get out the vote, get out the vote, get out the vote. Vote tomorrow. I'm so excited to be able to vote tomorrow. We will be doing reports starting at about 7:30 tomorrow evening to do recaps at the top and bottom of the hour, giving you election results for the area, not just Wichita, but all the areas that are having special elections. We'll be doing that within the listening range. Stay tuned in. Looking forward to doing that tomorrow night, as election night is always fun. But right now, get your pen and paper out. Start thinking about who you're going to be voting for because, as you know, the city councils and for the school boards, they are not Republican, Democrat. You need to listen to their platforms. You need to listen to what they stand for. And as we mentioned, out of the 10 candidates, we got 6 of them on the show, and we talked about their platform, talked about their experience, their backgrounds, and it was very difficult to do this, but I worked on it throughout the weekend. I'll post this as a special podcast as well on the podcast link, shared all over the social media, but that way you have an idea on who to vote for when you go and vote for the Wichita School Board. Out of about the 15-20-minute interviews that we did, I had to compress down to about a minute and a half per candidate here. So it's about 10 minutes long, but I want you to listen. We break it up by district on who's running against one another, and that way you can make the little check mark next to one or the other. This is the Wichita School Board 2017. 4 districts, 10 candidates, 6 joined the Voice of Reason. This is their story. Starting in District 1, the incumbent running for the 3rd term for the Wichita School Board, Betty Arnold joins the Voice of Reason.
I have served on the board for 10 years. This is my 3rd term running. What got me involved is just caring for kids. Someone had to step up and inspire me, and I've always appreciated that. So now I'm in a good position to give back, or I have been in a position. Well, one of the reasons that I initially ran was to try and work with the achievement gap. I was very concerned with the African American achievement. It has always lagged significantly behind. And what I've seen over the past 10 years is that we've gradually narrowed that gap. I think one of the major things has been just to focus on the fact that we have a problem. And one of the great things about this community is when we acknowledge this is a problem area, then we put our efforts, our energies, our hearts, our minds together to try and work toward a solution. Unfortunately, when it comes to education, it's not an overnight success. It's just day by day by day. We've looked at a number of ways of trying to save money. And if you think over the past 8-9 years, $98 million is a lot of money. And there have been a lot of things we've had to sacrifice. Not only have we had to sacrifice increase in wages, though we have marginally been able to offer something to the staff over each negotiated year, it has not really been significant. But also there have been other areas that are just as significant because we've had to cut spending on those support things for our students, programs for our students.
Her challenger, local activist, and the youngest candidate in the election, Ben Blankley.
I've lived in Wichita for 10 years, and I've worked as a systems integration engineer at Spirit Air Systems that whole time. And so I come to the candidacy from an advocacy activist kind of background. I was previously on the board of directors of the Wichita Community Theater. I was elected president there, dealt with the community, dealt with issues involving public policy and things like that. One of the things that I could bring that's unique is I'm one of the youngest candidates running in this race. I'm a young parent myself. I have a full-time day job. I have a lot in common with not only the parents, but also the teachers and the certified staff and the school district. So I think I can bring a unique perspective to the decisions at the board table from that type of background. At the local level, what we can do is we can tailor our specific curriculum to the individual building even, because we serve a wide variety of students. And so in order to provide an adequate and equitable education for every student, you need to specialize. You have IEPs, you have honors classes, things like that, that you can achieve through the budget and policy process that can customize the learning environment for each student and allow everybody to succeed. Across our city, our magnet schools are in our impoverished areas, and so you can pull in a wider variety of socioeconomic backgrounds by incentivizing students to get bused to a magnet school instead. And so one way we can further incentivize that is to expand the magnet program and allow for some internal school choice among the public schools.
In District 2, 3 candidates are joining the race. Deborah Washington did not join the Voice of Reason, but the other 2 did. In District number 2, Julie Hedrick has been involved in the administration for the Wichita School District and now looking to join the school board.
I have been a lifelong resident of Wichita Public Schools, and so I really love Wichita Public Schools. I went through them as a child. And then I had a 28-year career with Wichita Public Schools in the facilities division. Instead of being on the teaching side, I was on the operational side. So I just really love our district. I am a proponent of public education and of USD 259 in particular. And now I'd like to have the opportunity to just go back and serve in a different capacity. Well, I think the importance of the classroom size is just the challenge for our teachers. Right now in the state, because of all the budget cuts that we've had over the last 9 years, education hasn't been as valued as much as maybe it should be. So our teachers haven't had significant raises over the last years. So as our budget increases, we need to get those salaries back up for the teachers. They have a really challenging job, and the larger classroom sizes are, the more challenging it is. But in Wichita Public Schools, we educate all children, and our teachers are the most important person for our child's education in the school. So whatever we can do to promote our teachers, to tell them what a great job they're doing, and to encourage them and to get more teachers in, more young people into education, those are what issues are important to me.
And the third candidate for District 2, Trish Heilman, has looked towards the school board after focusing on parent involvement in the community.
I have 5 kids in the district. I have been serving in PTOs and site councils and all that kind of stuff through their whole schooling. And I became involved in the school board when I was trying to advocate for a teacher that I thought was getting a raw deal. And so I have been the last 4 years organizing a parent group for her. PTO presidents, vice presidents come to my house quarterly and get to tell Joy what's going on in their schools. And then Joy can tell those parents what's going on at the school board. It's this connection that no other district has. We have a lot of discussions. You know, in 2012, they closed schools, and they shared that they've been talking about closing these schools for 18 months, but they only talked to the public about it 2 months before. And then parents were up in arms. If they had had 18 months to advocate, to get used to this idea, that would have been one thing. And if they had been having those brave discussions 18 months ago, it would have been a different outcome than the huge blow-up that it was in 2012. I think one of the biggest things we have to do is unshackle teachers' hands. We have been, for the last 10 years, putting in front of them scripted curriculums where they have got a script, except for amazing actors who really can show off their stuff, can really get kids excited when they're teaching from a script. I think that we have overstructured them. Currently, we do something called a bell-to-bell curriculum. From the minute the bell rings in the morning to the minute the bell rings in the evening, they have a schedule. What we need to do is offer parents that actual choice. Currently, we have our magnet system. Parents who don't want to go to their neighborhood school can fill out a magnet application, but they know that they've been put in a lottery. You have a chance to go to the magnet school you want to go to. I think we need to increase the ability of parents to know that they're going to not have to go to that school that's their local school by giving them a choice.
In District Number 5, Peter Grant is set to challenge the incumbent, Mike Rohde. Unfortunately, neither candidate was able to join the Voice of Reason on KQAM. And finally, in District 6, 3 candidates are on the ballot. 2 joined the show. Ron Rosales was not able to join. Walt Chappell, however, looks to join the school board after years of advocating for education legislation in the state of Kansas.
Well, I've got over 40 years' experience actually in education. I have my PhD from Michigan State in that area of curriculum and instruction. But I've helped work both at the K-12 and at the secondary level. It's been a real treat to work with students at all grade levels. We've got a lot of places where we could use the funds more effectively, make sure the kids learn job skills. But we're using funds for all kinds of fads. We have to have relevant curriculum for one. I taught science, and I made sure that I tried to make it very interesting, something that kids could relate to. And when they did, they saw, here's a teacher that's really trying his best to make sure they learn something that they can apply. Too often we've got very esoteric stuff going on in the classes. It's boring, and many of the kids don't see any relevance to it. So they just shut off their brain, let alone, leave the school. First thing we got to do is get rid of Common Core. It's making our teachers go nuts, trying to read a script, follow a standard. They've got to be on a particular standard on a given week, and if they're not, then the principal can say, oh, you're not doing a good job. Well, that's crazy. And many times the kids are seeing through it. The math is just totally confusing for parents, teachers, and the students. So if we get back to teaching the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, the things that we all know work, and when they're interested in a topic, they'll read all kinds of stuff about that. We don't have to force them into square peg in a round hole.
And their opponent, Shirley Jefferson, a former school board member, looks to join the school board again.
I am a retired compliance investigator for Boeing. I have been retired since 2004. I have a Master of Science degree in human resources and also in business administration. But the reason that I'm running, education is just facing so many challenges from the inside out and also from the top down. Some of the ideas that I have, because I feel that the graduation rates, we've been working on those. The changing of the curriculum, doing everything that we can to make sure that our kids are learning. I believe that we're very strong in that area. My platform is about family engagement solutions. I believe that we need to do a better job of working with our parents because they are the first teachers. And so when they come into our schools, we need to make sure that we're treating them with respect and also helping them to step through the processes with the school district. Fiscal accountability, of course, everyone knows that there is nothing we can do about what the state gives us, but what I am committed to is doing everything that I can to make sure that every dollar that we spend goes toward the success of our children.
There it is. The 6 candidates for Wichita School Board that came on to the Voice of Reason out of the 10. Not a bad deal there. We appreciate all of them joining us. We'll be doing the coverage tomorrow for the election. Get out the vote, get out the vote, get out the vote. A montage of their platforms. Where do you stand on the issue? What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see change on the school board? As that is kind of an important issue here in the state, is it not? Talking about education funding, talking about the different programs that are available to the children, talking about the freedom, the choice of children to move from one district to another, one school to another. Where do you stand on that? I want to hear from you. 721-8255-721-TALK. Again, we appreciate all the candidates coming on. I'm going to post that audio, that montage, onto the Voice of Reason's podcast. I'm going to share it all over on social media so that way you can share it. You can listen to it again. You can write down your notes. You can figure out exactly where each of the candidates stand, as that is extremely important. 721-8255-721-TALK. One more break here. We'll come back, wrap up the show. Open lines to you. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up the show today right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Appreciate you hanging out with us. The fastest growing radio show in Kansas. And it's thanks to you. I didn't do nothing. I really didn't. I just come on here and just kind of like have a little fun and try and get some info out and do what we can. And you felt like listening to it, and we love you for that and appreciate it. 721-8255-721-TALK. 5 minutes at the top of the hour. Let's go right to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name? Hello. Going once, going twice. Give me a call back. I want to hear from you. 721-8255-721-TALK. I do have to. I wanted to wait till the end of the show. By the way, I don't know if it's true or not. If you listen to the first hour of the show, I did make the claim. Not a whole lot of news or information to come out yet, but I did make the claim saying that Antifa had struck this weekend. Now, he wasn't known to be a member of Antifa as of yet, but the shooting down in Texas, I lumped that in to an Antifa attack. From what they said they were going to do on the 4th, he ended up doing this weekend. I called him a member of Antifa because he was an atheist. He was anti-religion. He was a bit of a nutso. He was he was removed from the military for assaulting his wife and his child. And I said that it was a score one for Antifa, who wanted to bully others into their agenda. It's not confirmed yet, but I did see a social media post floating around saying that he was, in fact, a member of Antifa. Again, I don't know if that's confirmed yet or not, but his ideology fits kind of straight and narrow with that, does it not? We don't like you because you believe a certain way, so therefore we're not just going to let you believe that way and I believe my way, but I'm going to actually impose my will on you and harm you because of it, because you're a bunch of radical Bible-thumping gun owners and right-wing nutsos who believe in Donald Trump. So therefore we need to harm you. Again, I don't know if it's true or not, but that is a social media meme floating around, which means we called it here before anybody else. Let's go right to the phones here, shall we? 721-8255-721-TALK. Good morning. What's your name?
Patrick.
Hey, good morning, Patrick. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Andy, how are you today?
Hey, we're living the dream. More fun every day.
There you go. Well, listen, I just want to, with your last comment about the Texas shooting, very sad thing, I just want to make mention of one comment there, but then I want to talk about that school board thing.
Sure.
We had a president that stepped up and addressed the microphone and said that we cling to our guns and Bibles. And, you know, he's right.
Sure.
We do cling to our guns and Bibles out here in the Midwest. But back to the school board thing, I only heard part of it, but I heard one man on there that made sense. He had the PhD, was running for the school board, and he called it like it was. We got to get rid of Common Core.
Sure.
And I think that alone should get that man the vote. And that's the only other comment I have is a lady talked about the classroom sizes and we educate all the kids.
Sure.
I think that's commendable, but I think when it starts costing us too much money to have so much diverse language in our schools and people that can't speak English, I think that's an issue. I think they need to address that.
You know, I completely agree. When they talk, I forget, there was a stat that we read a while ago about how many languages could potentially be taught in our school system here in the Wichita area, and it was roughly around 12 or 20 or something like that. It was ridiculous because of the people that we bring in here, which again, welcome aboard, and we want them to be members of our community. But to be members of the community, you need to be able to assimilate and function as a member of that community, which means you need to be able to learn to speak English. Now, if it's a class on transitioning for English lessons, then all the power to you. But if we're teaching math and art and history and so on and so forth, we're teaching it in English and then turning around and teaching it in 10 different languages, you're never going to learn anything because it takes 10 times the amount of time just to learn one thing.
Exactly. And the other thing this man said was we need to get back to the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this arithmetic that they teach, and I'll be the first one to step up. I could only help my kids to a certain point, and they were very young, and I was not able to help them any further because of the way they have it so worded.
That's very true. Patrick, I appreciate the call, my friend. Hate to cut you off there. Top of the hour news coming up, but you're absolutely right. That's what we need back in our school district. That's what we need to change, and that's what this election's all about. Have a great day, everybody.